Welcome to the Hojo on Architecture podcast season 5, Concept and Design. Chapter 1, Origins Defining the Concept. This season is called Concept and Design, and over the next 10 episodes, we will explore how interior and architectural designers think, organize ideas, build narratives, and shape spatial experience through what we call the concept. We will challenge assumptions, refine definitions, and most importantly, try to understand why this single word carries such enormous weight in both design education and professional practice. We begin today with origins. Where does the concept come from? How has it been defined? And why do designers rely on it so heavily, even when we struggle to articulate what it really means? In interior and architectural design, the word concept appears everywhere. It is written in project briefs, whispered in critiques, celebrated when it's strong, and quietly blamed when it's weak. Students are told your concept needs development. Designers promise clients, we have a strong concept. Researchers analyze the concept as a cognitive tool, while practitioners treat it as a strategic one. The word has such widespread usage that it has almost become invisible, assumed, familiar, and natural. We talk about it as if everyone already knows what it is. But do we? That is the question at the center of today's episode, because when we begin to examine the term, we discover something surprising. There is no single definition. There are tendencies, traditions, preferences, and philosophies, but no universal agreement. The concept has never been one thing, it has always been many, and that multiplicity is not a weakness. In fact, it is the source of the concept's power. To understand this, we first need to trace the role of the concept in design education. Historically, the concept emerged as a pedagogical device, a way for instructors to help students organize their ideas. It provided a structure, a direction, a small guiding star. Early design schools, from the Bauhaus and Ulm to contemporary studio cultures, employed the concept as a means to prevent students from being overwhelmed by possibilities. With an infinite array of options in material, form, and composition, the concept became a navigational tool. But as design education evolved, the concept's function expanded. It was no longer just a tool for beginners, it became a requirement for professionals. Competitions asked for concept statements. Architectural offices described their design process as concept-driven, and interior designers adopted conceptual thinking to articulate atmosphere, narrative, and user experience. Across these shifts, the word became more central and more ambiguous. Today, the concept sits at the heart of interior and architectural design practice, yet remains difficult to define. Some describe it as the big idea. Others say it is the unifying theme. Some treat it as an organizing strategy. Others treat it as a generator of form. Many use it as a narrative device. And students, understandably, often feel that the concept is something they should intuitively just know. This episode aims to break that myth. A concept is not magic, nor is it a slogan. It is a structured way of thinking. And every designer deserves a clear understanding of what that structure involves. If we examine the literature, 4 tendencies consistently appear, which we will discuss in more depth in episode 2. Concept as idea, the initial spark, the seed of intention. Concept as framework, a structure that organizes decisions. Concept as strategy, a positioning mechanism that ties the project to context, meaning, or narrative. And concept as generator, a device that actively produces form, space, or atmosphere. These tendencies show that the concept is both flexible and multi-layered. It can begin as a small idea, then evolve into a comprehensive strategy, and then become a spatial generator. It can shift form as the project matures, growing in tandem with the designer's thinking. And this fluidity is precisely why the concept remains indispensable. Yet the concept is often misunderstood. Students may imagine it as a single sentence. Practitioners may treat it as a justification tool. Critics may use it as a measure of coherence, but in reality, the concept is not a sentence, a diagram, a mood board, or a metaphor. It is the logic that binds these things together. To define the concept clearly, we must begin by acknowledging that it occupies a specific intersection of intention and experience. On the one hand, the concept communicates what the designer wants. On the other hand, it shapes how the user understands and experiences the space. It mediates between the designer's internal world and the external reality of the built environment. In interior and architectural design, this mediation is everything. It is what transforms a collection of decisions into a coherent spatial narrative. But clarity requires honesty. The concept is also a site of confusion. Why? Because concept is used to describe many different things. In some contexts, it refers to aesthetic atmosphere. In others, it relates to social or cultural meaning. In others still, it refers to form-making strategies, material logic, or user experience. Without acknowledging this diversity, the concept becomes a floating term, stretched too widely, applied too loosely, repeated without precision. This season aims to correct that. Today's episode focuses on defining the concept by mapping its landscape, identifying the underlying patterns behind how designers use the term. In the upcoming episodes, we will build upon this foundation to develop a refined, practical, and narrative-based model. But first, we must address a central question. What makes a concept useful? Usefulness in design is not measured by poetic language or artistic expression alone. It is calculated by how consistently a concept can guide decisions. If a concept can explain why a choice was made, how a form relates to a narrative, or what connects the interior atmosphere to the architectural massing, then the concept is doing its job. A concept becomes strong not because it is beautiful, but because it is coherent. And coherence is not an aesthetic trait. It is a cognitive one. The concept helps the designer think. It allows the project to stay focused. It helps the user understand the space. It gives the project meaning beyond its functional requirements. When the concept is weak, the project tends to fragment. Spaces feel disconnected, materials feel arbitrary, the atmosphere feels accidental, and the user's experience becomes forgettable. When the concept is strong, everything falls into place. Interior and architectural elements complement and enhance one another. Circulation moves logically. Light and material reinforce intention. The experience becomes comprehensible and memorable. In many ways, the concept is the designer's compass. It points forward even when the project shifts. It points inward, reminding the designer of their intentions, and it points outward, guiding the user's interpretation. This first episode, then, is not about narrowing the concept. It is about opening it and allowing multiple definitions to coexist, inviting designers to embrace the richness of the term rather than simplify it prematurely, because when we understand the origins, when we recognize the diversity of definitions, we become better equipped to craft a model that is both structured and flexible. This season will argue that the most potent version of the concept is one understood as a narrative framework, a structure that connects decisions to story and story to experience. However, before we proceed, we must first understand how the field has discussed the concept thus far and why those definitions are essential. In episode 2, we will explore the 4 major roles of the concept in detail: idea, framework, strategy, and generator, and trace how each role operates across interior and architectural design. For now, we end where we began, with the understanding that clarity is the foundation of good design, and defining the concept is the first step toward designing with intention, coherence, and meaning. Welcome to Season 5. This is Hoja on Architecture. This concludes the concept in design. Chapter 1, Defining the Concept. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.